Itsuno's childhood dream game truly looks to be coming to fruition, and the content we've been getting drip-fed by IGN is really hammering this point home. Dragon's Dogma 2 is already being touted as a highly viable Game of the Year contender, but let's cut to the chase. Will it be good? It will come as absolutely no surprise that I think the answer to this is a resounding abso-bloody-lutely. Capcom are on a serious winning streak at the moment, and the general vibe since the initial release trailers, coupled with the community mood around this game, all point towards DD2 being an extremely successful game. Perhaps even one of those genre-defining moments. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself and caught up on the hype train here, but doesn't it feel like something special is on the horizon? The most recent trailer has ratcheted up my hype levels tenfold, which I'm going to go over in a moment. But first, what is it that is actually drawing me to this game? Well, the most obvious starting point to answer this is simply just how good Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is. Having not touched it for a number of years, and now being deep into another lengthy investment with the game, experimenting with different builds and play styles, I can safely say that despite its age, Dragon's Dogma is a top-tier RPG experience that really does feel like it's in a league of its own. If you haven't played this game, folks, do yourself a favor, get yourself a copy and give it a go. You will not regret it. I'm also an absolute sucker for power fantasy-driven gameplay, and whilst it's been presented brilliantly in different guises over many years in gaming, nothing quite hits as hard as the high fantasy setting, the world building via exploration, story development, all provide a perfect backdrop to a canvas in which character development and build crafting comes to the forefront. It's therefore no surprise that this game is right up my street and many others. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the key aspects of this most recent gameplay trailer. One of the key headlines from this trailer is just how heavily focused the game appears to be in terms of exploration. This is a hugely welcome point. Whilst this may seem obvious to stalwart fans of both the game and genre in general, I do think that this is something that we should not be taking for granted. All too often in recent memory, the sense of wonderment and curiosity is all but sapped out of our gameplay experiences, and I remember experiences when I was younger, playing games like Zelda 64. That level of wonderment and sheer desire to go out and explore the world was what really drove you, and I feel recently, well, in the last decade or so, games seem to feel a little bit devoid of this experience. In this review, exploration is described as feeling natural. There are no quest boards, no symbols above quest givers' heads, and I absolutely love the idea of NPCs approaching us to give quests. This will make the world feel much more alive, and I'm really excited to see just how developed this aspect of the game is. The comments do remind me slightly of what Cyberpunk marketed itself as, and whilst I do really like the form that game has taken, I don't think that game has ever really truly lived up to bringing Night City to life as much as they claimed that they would. Like in Dragon's Dogma 1, our own hireable pawns will be bringing us knowledge of the world and its intricacies, and I love how this works already. So doubling down on this is a great idea. There was one statement though in particular which I thought was really apt and interesting relating to this topic.
All of this leads to a style of exploration and adventuring that feels very organic and appropriately rewarding, very much in the same way that Elden Ring and the two most recent Zelda games do. As alluded to in the intro to this preview, you also never really know what to expect once you set out to pursue a quest lead. The very act of exploring beyond the safety of a city's walls is unpredictable, dangerous, and enticing, which is why it's so exciting.
The drawing of similarities to both recent Zelda games and Elden Ring are massive selling points for me. The mention of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom immediately takes me back to how much enjoyment I got out of both those games, just simply wandering around with a sense of curiosity. I'd often find myself bleary-eyed in the small hours of the morning on some wild expedition which has initially started with a standard quest trail. It's so easy to get distracted in those games, but you don't mind one bit because the sense of exploration is truly awe-inspiring. And actually, now that I'm reflecting on my current playthrough of DD1, I would agree that this feeling is there, albeit to a lesser degree, but with the suggestion that this has been doubled down on, I'm absolutely gripped to find out how this will work out. If the exploration feels enticing, I cannot wait. There are, of course, subtle areas of concern which I think must be gotten right in order to ensure this aspect of the game continues to feel enjoyable and less laborious, for want of a better word. Something in DD1 which really grinds me down personally is having to head back to the town so often to resupply and restock unlock your curatives, on top of the way that their health system ultimately works as a driving force. I'm really pleased to note that this is something they appear to be considering by adding a camping mechanic which allows us to rest in the wilderness. We could set up camps, but there's that added stress that we could get attacked during the night, as demonstrated in the Griffin encounter in the review. There really is an element of risk within most, if not all, aspects of the game, and this creates a sense of heightened danger in the world and complements the world building aspects really well. Camping allows you to recover health that we permanently lose through wear and tear of being out in the world, and I think this is an excellent evolution of the system in DD1. I can see it creating a real sense of push-pull, risk urgency, much akin to how recently released game Enshrouded has created with the Shroud mechanic. Again, that's something that you should absolutely check out, folks. Fast travel with fairy stones is back from DD1, and I'm glad to hear that they appear to be following a similar approach with port crystals. I'll be honest, when you first start playing DD1, this feels quite rough, but as you gain more port crystals with the introduction of the Eternal Fairy Stone, this became a lot more tolerable. I think that this is an aspect which developers need to strike a balance with. All too often, our experience of a world in a video game is cheapened by really dropping the ball with this and adding fast travel mechanics, clicking beacons on a map around the world, and that's not really my idea of fun exploration and world building. Most recently, Starfield, I feel, is a game that really dropped the ball with this. Compare the way that game plays to a game like No Man's Sky, and you can see the glaring differences in the way world traversal works. I know that some people do like that element of being able to zip around the map quickly, but one thing I felt in Starfield was that you just had no sense of adventure there. You were just dropped into certain areas and kind of in and out, and that for me really took away from the excitement and fun that you actually experience a lot of in No Man's Sky. Whilst this may be a polarizing topic, I think if you're looking for an easy ride, then DD2 may not be the right game of choice for you. Power fantasy and the comments around this section were really welcome, and there was a few revelations that really piqued my interest. Having currently just grinded all my vocations in DD1 to level 9, I can safely say that the choice to have less unlock grinds in the game is appealing. I know they mentioned in the review that you have to do quest lines rather than grind the actual vocations to unlock the more advanced vocations, and that's great. However, on that point, I do think that a system similar to how the unlocking of augments takes precedent to create those epic min-max builds akin to those in DD1 should still have a place. It gives the game much more longevity and replayability, and ultimately it's quite enjoyable to experience the slow and steady evolution of your character via being encouraged to experience all the classes on offer and what that kind of nuance offers there as well. It was quite funny hearing the comments around how they've altered the way the warrior plays in comparison to DD1 with the shoulder barge ability.
For starters, we've jacked up the warrior's offense and destructive power, to the point where it's unfair. In exchange, its abilities take a little longer to execute. This makes the vocation somewhat difficult to use, but that's where the tackle comes into play. If you're attacked, you can use the tackle to cause an enemy to be stunned instead of being stunned yourself, making it easier to get into the vocation.
I was only the other day ranting to a friend about how much I didn't enjoy the warrior in DD1 compared to the rest of the other vocations, and I felt like they really dropped the ball with that in comparison to the others. The footage here makes it look like a much tastier prospect to play, and having considered myself to be locked down as a thief main, I'm now very tempted by the warrior. It has a very nice rhythmical feel to it by the looks of it. The sorcerer also looks like it's been given some love to help manage its stamina and ability to cast quicker, giving the gameplay again a more rhythmical feel as opposed to the stop-start nature that we currently experience in DD1. The stamina system in that regard is quite a jarring mechanic that takes some getting used to, so it'll be quite interesting to see how it compares in DD2. I do think that when you first start playing that game, that is something that you will notice if you haven't played the first one. Now, with all that being covered, what do I think could potentially stop this game from being successful? Well, I'm going to be really blunt and throw caution to the wind here. I don't think there is anything, unless they've majorly dropped the ball and we're having the wool pulled over our eyes. It really looks for me personally like everything I could possibly want from a next-gen RPG, and I'm beyond excited to play this game and cover it extensively. So with that in mind, smash that subscribe button if you want to keep informed. However, I do think it's important to stress Dragon's Dogma 2 will not be for everyone. It might blindside some people that get caught up in that general hype of this game, and my advice would be grab DD1, give it a go if you are unsure. The game itself has stood the test of time time, and it really is an excellent experience even after all these years. I actually say it's a must play if you're an avid RPG gamer and you haven't already. I also fully recommend that people look into the other information that's available around DD2 before pulling the trigger and pre-ordering or whatever you might do. What are your thoughts, folks? Have you got any opinions on this? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. For the people that are perhaps a bit unsure about this game, check out this next video if you're looking for a quick punchy summary of other aspects of how DD2 is shaping up. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.